How many emergency response benefit checks have been sent to people whose applications have been flagged as fraudulent?
The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to rapidly remind people that roughly 7.7 million Canadians received the CERB. Mr. Poilievre.
Response benefits have been sent out to people whose applications have been flagged as fraudulent.
L'Honorable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister. Thank you. I understand that the pace just allows us to give it a little trickle of information at a time, but Mr. Poilievre.
How many?
Monsieur le Ministre.
Minister. We're working very hard on this.
Monsieur Poilievre.
How many?
Monsieur le Ministre.
Honourable Minister, to guarantee the integrity of our system, we are going to provide support for Canadians.
Response benefit checks have been sent to people whose applications have been flagged as fraudulent.
Monsieur le Ministre.
7.7 million Canadians received the CERB, and we are ensuring the integrity of our system.
He's now claiming that all 7.7 million? That's crazy. His department is reported to have given out, the department is reported to have given out 200,000. So is the number 200,000 the correct number of checks that have been sent out to people whose applications have been red flagged as fraudulent? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister, thank you. I'm happy to benefit from this opportunity to provide the following details. First, 7.7 million Canadians received at least one payment. And Mr. Poilievre, how many prisoners received their emergency benefit check? The Honourable Minister, if I may, to go further, I'd like to thank the member for his question. 7.7 million Canadians received emergency benefit. Mr. Poilievre.
7 million Canadians are in jail? The question was, how many prisoners have received the benefit check?
Monsieur le Ministre.
Honourable Minister, listen, we can make jokes about what's happening to Canadians, but many of them are suffering with this crisis. Mr. Poilievre.
CBC is saying that prisoners are receiving the check. They can't have lost their job. They were already in prison. Simple question. How many prisoners have received the checks?
The Honourable Minister. Chair, I'd like to remind members in this House that we're talking about a very serious situation, and some people are unable to make ends meet. These are emergency measures. Mr. Poilievre. We're doing the work that Canadians expect us to do.
Have received the checks.
The Honourable Minister. Chair, I've already explained to the member and I'm happy to remind him once again that this benefit is an emergency one. Mr. Poilievre.
The Auditor General says that he's dropping half of his audits because the government refuses to provide him funding. The government has enough money to send 200,000 fraudulent applicants emergency checks. Why won't the government give the Auditor General the funding he requests?
The Honourable Minister. I'd like to thank the member for his question, and I'd like to talk about the role that institutions play in this emergency situation, including the role of the Auditor General. And we're going to continue to support him because he allows us to do things properly. Mr. Poilievre.
The Auditor General have to do to get the money to do his audits? Does he have to file a bunch of fraudulent applications for an emergency response benefit?
I just want to remind the honourable members to place their questions through the chair, not directly to the members, and answer directly.
The Honourable Minister. Chair, I know the member, and I know that he doesn't want to give the impression that the Auditor General has to be fraudulent to correctly do his job. Mr. Poilievre.
That's why he should get the money he needs to do his job. He was doing twice as many audits under the previous government than he is now, but doesn't have the money to do the audits he needs to keep an eye on this government's extraordinary spending. So yes or no, will the government give the Auditor General the funding he has requested so that he can get back to doing the same number of audits he did under the much more robust funding of the previous Harper government?